Welcome back to Raising Truth Podcast. I'm going to continue on the series for the holiday season. In Raising Truth Podcast, we're going to continue to have these just honest conversations about how to stay grounded in your faith, how to really apply scripture in your life, how to, truly be a home founded in Christ. So that means having conversations where, real testimonies, real situations in which you have to truly stay grounded in your faith. And a lot of these things come up when, as a parent in this generation, right? We have to stay rooted and grounded in how the Bible tells us to parent, right? All the principles, right, that he tells us how to be. For some reason, as a parent, that becomes harder for most Christians. It's even harder. It's already hard to be a parent, and it's even harder to be a Christian parent who stands their ground, who stays rooted in all that the Lord tells us of how we should be living, how we should be organizing our home, right? The examples that we need to lead. So I'm going to talk a little bit and share of how I navigate Christmas. So again, I'm focusing on, a little bit about the holiday season and just kind of going over and targeting situations that you may face, decisions you may face, and kind of just how to navigate that. I'm going to focus on Christmas. Now, we know, especially, at least me coming from a very Puerto Rican family, old, rooted in old traditions, et cetera, Santa Claus, it's a big deal. Now, I grew up fully believing in Santa Claus. You couldn't touch the presents under the tree or the magic was going to go away and the presents were going to be empty. Okay. It was that level of fear and belief in Santa Claus. It was also so huge where we had to wait because, Puerto Ricans celebrate the 24th, Christmas Eve. We wait till midnight to open the presents. So it was so intense where we had to wait till midnight till till one of my aunts got a phone call from Santa Claus saying that it was okay and it was time to open the gifts, right? It was the real deal, the whole thing. Now, becoming a parent, that was hard because how you gonna, all of a sudden you're the one that's gonna be oh yeah, well, we're not gonna do the Santa Claus thing. Then it's the question of shouldn't I? I mean, it's just innocent, or I don't want to take away the holiday magic and the experience and all this stuff, right? Christian parents get kind of backed into a corner when it comes to Santa Claus and Christmas. And it becomes this, battle of, let's not take away the, innocence and holiday magic and cheer and all that, festive part of it, that's the special part of it. So we get backed up into the corner of should I, shouldn't I? Oh, then I have to deal with, how do you, navigating how to celebrate then with the family, let's say there's other kids, right? Where their parents are, they're doing the Santa Claus thing, within your family. I mean, specifically, how do you get together and celebrate? And then you are okay, should I, shouldn't I? Right? How do I do that? Even if, let's say, part of you knows for sure, okay, no, I don't want to do that. But then you have those that actually doubt, and it's oh man, I know he's not real, but I kind of don't want to take away that, creative, innocent belief and all the stuff that comes with it and all this stuff. And And then there's the using, Santa Claus. Like, if you don't behave, Santa Claus is not going to give you gifts, right? Kind of blaming it on Santa Claus, all that stuff. Now, coming from me, where I believed in Santa Claus for a very long time, and that was like a big thing in my family, that was a big decision to make. And I did, I kind of was like on the fence about it because, as a parent, first of all, you're always thinking like, oh, I just want to be a good parent. Like, I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing and all that. But again, I was always like, having conversations with my husband and always like, I want to do everything in Christ. I want to be very Christ-centered and intentional about the things that we do and share and talk about in the home and all that stuff. Now, so it took me a little, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to be like crushing all their hopes and dreams and, if they see other kids and all that stuff. So, but ultimately I'm just like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't feel like I want to keep up this lie of like Santa Claus is real and go all the extent of having to really tiptoe, oh, the wrapping paper, where did that come from? And go to the far extent of really fluffing up essentially the biggest lie that Santa Claus exists and they're watching you all the time, because that is not true. The only one that is capable of watching you all the time is God. He's the one that's capable of doing that. Okay. First of all, the way that I'm I kind of talk about with some of my family members when I get into these conversations or other people, I'm like, first of all, that is way too much energy to be keeping up this whole biggest lie. First of all, I'm a terrible liar. I'm not you can tell, I can't, I'll start laughing or I'll have a face, I would never be able to sell that lie, first of all. Second of all, I don't have that in me to keep up with all that. That's a lot of work. You got to tiptoe around, you got to hide, the wrapping paper, you got to make up this whole thing, this whole fantasy of that he exists and everything that comes with it. That is all false. And then when they come to find out that they're not real, then it's a big heartbreak. And that heartbreak came from you fluffing up this big old lie. And it may not, to some, it may not seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal when you're trying to lead an example of, we're founded in truth. We believe in God, the only one that's with us and can see us and see everybody simultaneously all the time, everywhere. How does that make sense if then there's Santa Claus and then there's a song of he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake? What? He knows if you, what? Come on now. He knows if you've been bad or good. First of all, stop. But seriously, if you really come to think about it, it's quite ridiculous. And in complete contrast to all that you're trying to teach, really focus on okay, what do I want to set the example of teach my child? And does this align with that? It does not. Same thing with the Easter bunny and all of that stuff. It does not, when you just really look at it, it does not make sense. And if you're on the fence about it, I'm not going to judge you, but truly reflect, does this align with truth? Not only that, but you see it as oh, I just don't want to take away that whole experience. You can experience and still have a beautiful Christmas season without Santa. And when there's truth within, right, the okay, who's giving the gifts, right? You're oh, I don't want to spoil it for them and all that. It's still an experience. When they open a gift that was wrapped up, it's still an experience. They're still gonna, have all that. But let's be clear, okay, all the Santa, the elves and all that, that's all pretend, is what I tell my daughter. I said, Yes, some people do believe that he's actually real. So, but it's just pretend. It's a fictional character, the way you read a pretend fantasy book where stories are made up and they're not real. And sometimes I explain to my daughter, like, it's okay to play pretend. Like, we don't want to take away the pretend play, right? A child being able to creatively play, right? Pretend play, innocent play, right? Like, dress up and, all that stuff, and creating the, scenes and all these things. That is all great for a kid, right? So, but we want to be able to differentiate that. Like, these are characters. This is pretend. This is fictional creative story. It's not true. It's not real life. It is pretend. It is pretend play. It is pretend fictional characters. I tell my daughter, yes, some people think that Santa is real. I said, but he is not. And in this house, we don't believe in Santa. We believe in Jesus. So we're going to be focused on talking about, okay, our focus is on Jesus. And we're going to do things that celebrate the birth of Jesus, all of that, right? And we still do wonderful like activities, and we make the birth of Jesus come to life, and do interactive things like that. We can still see a couple, right? We can still go and see lights and all that stuff, but we're not going to indulge in this pure belief and then pure fear of a Santa, right? And we don't need to feel guilty about it, but we do need to be founded in the examples that we want to lead in our lives, right? Same thing with the Easter bunny too, right? Like, the Easter bunny takes away from Resurrection Sunday. Yes, like, again, we say this is a fictional character. He's not the reason for this particular holiday, right? It's okay, and I like that because I chose that path. It really does open up conversations, honest conversations with my daughter, honest and interesting conversations, because she's very literal. She's very like, she needs to know all the details, and she like, the way that she thinks is just really out there. So because I'll be like, okay, yeah, we don't believe in this. This is what we believe in. Some people may believe in these things, and she'll ask her questions. It opens up that time of like, okay, what does this mean? So what do we do? Why do they do that? And then sometimes she even gives a disclaimer like, oh, I think this is cute. It has this certain character, whatever, even though, I know he's not real, whatever, but like, this is cute, blah, blah, blah. So she'll give those disclaimers. But she'll also ask me questions spontaneously. We'll have these conversations, right? It opens because you already started with truth. You already started with honesty, right? With you telling them the truth and being open. It then opens a door for them to be able to have these conversations with you, to ask you questions, to dig deeper into, the meanings of these holidays, to dig deeper into the concepts of like, okay, why do people believe in, in other things? Like, why do they believe in fictional things? Why do they believe that if it's not real? All these conversations and questions that just cultivates good conversation with your child. Let's not be afraid of being real. We don't need to fluff it up and make up this whole thing when you're trying to like say, okay, Santa's not real. You don't need to make it into this whole thing. Like, just keep it simple. Like, this is a fictional character. Yes, some people believe him, but he's not real. We don't believe in him. This is not how we, how we're going to choose to celebrate the holiday. Although, let's say, other family members do believe, other family members are going to celebrate. They might ask you about it. But this is what we believe. This is what we choose to do. We don't need to like make it into like a whole thing and or try to find an elaborate way to say the truth. Just say the truth and open up conversation to just be honest about it. There shouldn't be like this whole thing that you have to do. There really isn't. Sometimes parents think, so hard and like, oh my God, like, how do I have this conversation? Like, how do I do that? Do I have to do this? No, like, just genuinely explain the truth. This is not true. This is. Again, when did we make it a thing to just complicate things? We don't need to make things bigger than they are. Let's just stay grounded. Yes, sometimes it could be hard, like, depending on your family, depending on, right, like who you're surrounded and all that. Yes, those things can be hard, which is why I share, kind of like how I navigate. I have a lot of conversations, with my daughter. I prepare her like, hey, these people, they might ask you about this, right? But this is why I talk about that. Like, how do I navigate? How do I make, these decisions? But let's not complicate, what's a lie, what's clearly lie, and what's clearly truth. What aligns with God's truth and what clearly does not, right? It's just, there's no, like, we should not have to complicate that. But let's share, again, the how. And again, that is why I started this podcast, is just having conversations. Some are going to be simple. Some are going to be, complicated and deep. But both need to be spoken about, and how do you live your life? How do you practically live your life, actually applying what you read and what you're believing in, right? It could be in literally just that. Like, do you tell your child about Santa or not? And for you who, let's say, definitely does not, it might seem like, of course not. But for some people, this is a genuine struggle, a genuine battle as a parent, because they're too focused on, I don't want to be a bad parent. Oh, I don't want to be that parent that ruins it for them. Like, there's genuine people thinking these things. So that's why it is important to share how to navigate these situations in life. So I pray this quick conversation is just talking about how to, navigate the Santa dilemma during the holiday. I hope that this helped you. And if you were on the fence or you were like afraid, I hope that this, truly just gives you the boldness and the courage to always stay grounded and stay firm and rooted in your faith. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in again. If you haven't already, like, share, subscribe, and thank you for the continuous support. And I hope that you continue to be blessed the more that the Lord continues to push me to share. Thank you again for joining Raising Truth Podcast. We will talk next time.